Think for a moment, $148 billion. Try to comprehend what that looks like, $148 billion. Today's episode is going to focus on an important organization who is helping to generate billions of dollars for protection of our fish species. My guest today spends his time on Capitol Hill building partnerships to help support the protection for all the fish species we love. And in today's episode, you're going to find out exactly what you can do to make an impact and allow your voice to be heard when it comes to assuring that these fish species are going to be here for the long term. This is the Wet Fly Swing Podcast, where I show you the best places to travel to for fly fishing, how to find the best resources and tools to prepare for that big trip, and how you can give back to the fish species we all love. Hey, I'm Dave, host of the Wet Fly Swing Podcast. I've been fly fishing since I was a little kid. I grew up around a little fly shop and have created one of the largest fly fishing podcasts in this country. I've also interviewed more of the greatest anglers than just about anyone in the world. Today, Connor Bevan, the American Sportfishing Association Government Affairs Inland Fisheries Policy Manager, will take us on a ride down to Capitol Hill and around the country so you know where your tax dollars are being spent. You'll find out about a bipartisan law that has provided fish passage around the country. You will hear about the Sportsman's Voice podcast, and also which three big programs are moving the needle for all of us to assure we have healthy fish populations for years to come. Plus, Connor is going to take us into ICAST, the largest sport fishing event in the world, and what you can take away from this big event that's coming up this year in July in Florida. We're going to be making politics fun again. Here we go. Connor Bevan from asafishing.org. How you doing, Connor?
Doing good. And Dave, it's great to join you today, and looking forward to getting into our conversation.
Yeah, me too. You know, we've heard a lot about ASA and ICAST over the years, and I think I want to get an update on what it is, how it's connected to the fishing, industry. Obviously we have a lot of fly anglers here, but I know there's definitely overlap. And I know fly fishing is part of what you guys do. It's obviously part of the sport fishing. So we're going to talk about that, get a big background. But maybe before we jump into ASA and ICAST and everything, take us back to fishing. Kind of what's your first memory of fishing, and how did you get into it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm from Northern California, and I grew up fishing the San Francisco Bay with my dad, whether that was going out on the bay, jigging for rockfish, trying to get into halibut, or, kind of going in some of the more brackish estuaries and fishing for stripers, going out to the Delta and, really enjoying that just incredible brackish fishery out there. There were a lot of opportunities in Northern California, to get into fishing, and cultivated really a lifelong love of fishing. Since then, I've, moved out to the East Coast. Fisheries are a little different out here, but, trying my hands to become a better trout angler for sure. And while I say I'm a little bit less accomplished as a fly angler than I am on the conventional side, it's something I find tremendous joy in and really love to get after it.
Nice. So you have done a little bit of fly fishing over the years?
Yes, I have. And, I've had the chance just recently to get on the Bow River out in the greater Calgary area. Just really incredible place out there. And as well as getting up to the Delaware River, and really enjoying, everything that the East Coast has to offer as well. Here on my short list, at least in the next few weeks, is I need to get out to, it's really here within the area that ASA is in. We're based out in Alexandria. I myself live in DC. We do a lot of our work on Capitol Hill, of course, but the Potomac River running through DC is home to just an incredible shad run, which is picking up here really through the next few weeks. And, just incredible opportunity for fly fishing right practically in the shadow of the nation's capital.
Right. That is awesome. Yeah, you're in a good area. We're going to be heading there in early May for one of our trout schools, just kind of out of with the Mossy Creek fly shop, and we're excited to hit the Shenandoahs and things like that. I haven't fished that area, so I'm really fired up. We got a small little group heading out, so good. This is awesome, and it sounds like your job. Maybe give us a little background. Let's talk ASA first off for high level. Some people are listening here. They maybe have no idea what you guys do. I know you do a lot, advocacy, education, a lot of everything. Talk about what it is from a high level, somebody that doesn't know what ASA is all about.
Certainly. So ASA, or the American Sportfishing Association, is really the nation's trade association representing the entire recreational fishing industry. And we support the sport fishing industry as well as the sport fishing community, in providing advocacy tools and connections for our members to grow and thrive. Beyond kind of what we do to connect the industry, we fight for healthy fisheries and improved access. We promote science-based fisheries management policy and maintain really a robust government affairs program that spans both coasts. Of course, the kind of freshwater and middle of the country is what I cover, as well as federal issues, which really have continued to impact science-based management and conservation and access across the country. So ASA is dedicated to advocating for the sport fishing industry. We foster engagement among stakeholders, the members, the businesses within the industry's community, while advocating for increased access to fishing and ensuring healthy and abundant fisheries. So just to say that, sport fishing, of course, is something that, over 50 million anglers in the U.S. Enjoy annually. Wow. And beyond, just a pastime for many of us, sport fishing is, substantial business. It really makes an impact in local and national economics. We annually contribute $148 billion as an industry to the U.S. economy, and through excise taxes that our members pay on sales of sport fishing tackle, rods, reels, and equipment. That funding goes back to state agencies and goes to fund conservation, management of fisheries, to keep sport fishing opportunities abundant going forward. So there's a tremendous symbiotic relationship between the industry, between conservation, between the angler. And ASA serves to act as a linkage to build community, to represent our members, our industry members, as well as to continue to advocate for increased access and healthier fisheries.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. That's that might be one of the best intros we've ever had right there. You've worked on your craft for sure. This is awesome. So it makes sense. I mean, you're speaking to all the good stuff that we've talked. We have a conservation piece on our podcast where we try to, when we're doing events, to try to find a local conservation group to highlight, right, and support them. And I think that sounds like you guys are on the same track along with everything else you do. And you're in the middle of the politics, which again, that's one thing we try not to get too much into. It's like in flight, right? You're on a guide trip, don't talk politics or religion, those two things, but you're in the middle of it. I'm curious, I want to get into that. I don't want to make this all about politics, but I know there's some big issues out there. What is, we do see ups and downs of populations, whether that's Chinook salmon in Alaska or, tarpon or whatever that is. What is a big issue that you guys are working on right now to help protect a species or an area around the country?
Well, certainly, I could take this in a number of different issues because, again, we focus on a wide range of species, wide range of regions. But I guess, one national issue that we're working on that has, kind of ramifications on the local level is reauthorizing what's known as the ACE Act, the America's Conservation Enhancement Act. And within the ACE Act, which is a package of, many different federal outdoor provisions that pertain to different sportsmen's issues, housed within that is the National Fish Habitat Partnership. And the partnership for the last 20 or 25 years, has convened 20 different partnerships which leverage federal and non-federal funding and resources and efforts to coordinate on regional fisheries conservation issues. So you can take that in many different directions across the country. In the West, there's the Western Native Trout Initiative, which has brought together state agencies, nonprofits, of course, the federal government, and just everyday anglers to work on the restoration and improving habitat quality, improving water quality, and ensuring that native trout out west, can thrive and that, sport fishing opportunities can continue. So you can look at issues in terms of salmon as well. There are Chinook salmon recovery partnerships. You can look at, the way that's worked here out east with the Eastern Brook Trout Restoration Partnership. Mm-hmm. But that's just to say that, we are actively working to reauthorize federal funding for this program. And, we can see, just examples across the country of where these, kind of lofty ideas here in DC and these kind of abstract bills can really make a difference on the everyday level and make a difference for the everyday angler.
That's it. And this is the This is the cool thing about your job, and I don't know all the details, but you're up on Capitol Hill and you're advocating to get basically funding, right? That's part of it, to get funding from, who's ever in office to say, hey, we need this money. So you hear about these things like, oh, here's $1 billion that it's coming down for the work you're talking about, conservation, protection of species. So describe that process a little bit. How does that, from where you're at when you're up on Capitol Hill, how does it go from that idea where you guys are talking about like, we need this, into a place where there's actually money going into a local watershed group or something around the country?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of that begins with the fact that ASA, as really representatives of the industry and, representatives of a community of anglers that are very vocal about their passions, about their pastimes, we can kind of leverage these voices to really ensure that we have, a nationwide appeal. And going and talking to members, say, on the House Natural Resources Committee that range from out west to out east, you can point to different, fisheries kind of within their district, different angling pastimes, as well as the businesses that make an economic impact on a local basis. So while partisan politics, is really a frustrating pastime to get into, and just seems to dominate the conversation here in DC. I would say we've done, a good job to kind of cultivate bipartisan appeal, kind of premised on the fundamental understanding that, we are all kind of in the shared interest of conservation, of maintaining access for fishermen and anglers, and really ensuring that, we can speak across the aisle to different concerns. So that regardless of whether it's a Democratic Congress and a Republican president or vice versa, that we can have our voices heard no matter what the congressional makeup is. And really we can seek to advance the industry's perspectives through that. So that's kind of, one way that we've really sought to maintain those relationships, and, access and conservation issues follow downstream of, that the ability for ASA to serve as a linkage between industry, between the sport fishing community and Capitol Hill.
That's awesome. Yeah, that makes total sense. So basically, you mentioned the House Natural Resources Committee, and I'm sure there's others that you guys are, building relationships, talking, just basically trying to get funding, right? Trying to get some funding secured. And it makes sense because these, folks around the country, I mean, obviously fishing is a big part of it. I mean, I guess what is the challenge is the business, right? Sometimes businesses, when you put conservation restrictions, things that might impact, right? Some people might say, hey, that impacts the bottom line. But it feels like to me that most people would be on board with this, because who doesn't want, healthy habitats and fish and all that stuff? But do you guys find there are some challenges, or do you feel like most people you talk to are kind of, they get it. They get why we need healthy fisheries?
Certainly. Yeah. I think there's, always kind of a directional understanding of the need for healthy fisheries. But of course, Congress is going to balance your priorities with those of other stakeholders. And occasionally there can be conflicts in which, our kind of perspectives on a natural resource question, or say our advocacy for scientific-based management comes in conflict with what other stakeholders want to do. So, well, I think on in the big picture, we really have sought to cultivate a bipartisan understanding of our interests, kind of making sure that there is a thorough education throughout the process to understand just, how different, say, aspects of the Farm Bill impact water quality and fishing downstream of that, and making sure that, say, these interests are and these perspectives are understood. So we seek to kind of continue to advance that perspective and really talk to member offices to make sure that we can kind of educate them on what anglers are seeing on the water.
This year, I ventured into the heart of eastern Idaho's Yellowstone Teton territory, where the fish were larger than life and the waters held the secrets of the best fly fishing out west. With crystal clear rivers like the Henry's Fork and the South Fork of the Snake, and enough lakes to keep you going all year long, make your way to Yellowstone Teton territory and embark on a journey to one of North America's finest fly fishing destinations. It's time to experience eastern Idaho for yourself and support this podcast at the same time. Squala Fly Fishing, combining advanced materials with fishing-focused, purpose-built design. Squala waders, jackets, shirts, pants, and insulation are made for us. To help Wet Fly Swing listeners right now, Squala is offering a 10% discount on your next order. Just visit squalafishing.com and use the coupon code WetFlySwing10 at checkout. That's Squala, S-K-W-A-L-A. Gear for us, the serious angler. People that are listening now are a mix of just, anglers that are out there and also some people that have businesses in the space. What would you tell them? What can they do to help? Obviously we all want to protect our species. What's the best thing? What's the advice you would tell them?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say first and foremost, get involved with Keep America Fishing. That is our advocacy platform for anglers to weigh in on different issues. And we've got both a mix of national and regional issues that matter to folks in their backyard. So the number one thing folks could do would be to go to Keep America Fishing and complete action alerts, contact their legislators, make their voice heard on key fisheries issues. And, beyond that, we are always kind of really interested to hear what is going on the ground. If there are issues that say ASA could be helpful and could be a part of, we're always kind of interested in hearing what's going on in different people's backyards. So whether it's getting in touch with ASA or, just becoming a more active part of the community and going to ICAST, meeting different folks from the industry, sharing different perspectives. We want to make sure that ASA can continue to serve, again, as that linkage between the sport fishing community and the sport fishing industry.
Gotcha. Okay. And you mentioned ICAST. I want to talk about that a little bit. We can follow up on some of the other, good work that ASA does, but the ICAST for sure is a big event. Maybe talk about, again, for somebody who doesn't know about ICAST, describe what it is and why you guys do this annually and how it, it's because it is one of the largest events kind of in the country, in the world.
Yeah, I think it might be, it certainly is the largest sport fishing industry event. It's the largest sport fishing industry trade show. And for over 60 years, it's convened hundreds of different exhibitors, thousands of attendees on an annual basis. This year, we are looking at July 16th through the 19th in Orlando, at the Orlando County Convention Center, and seeking to build on what was a great trade show last year that, again, brought together exhibitors and attendees from across the country, from 80 different countries as well. And, seeking to kind of showcase the best in the industry, the new products, the latest innovations, different trends and new companies are in there as well. And we get to have an opportunity to vote on new products, the best new products in the industry through the new product showcase. So if you're in a tackle store and you see that little icon, best in show, at the new product showcase, that is downstream of what goes on at ICAST every year. And yeah, it's really a great opportunity for folks, whether you're coming from more of the conventional side or the fly side. It's an opportunity for manufacturers, dealers, reps, distributors, media to come together, see the latest in the industry and find out what's going on in the fishing world. So I think last year our show's attendees were above 13,000. We've really seen some strong growth coming out of COVID, and there's just more and more interest and more interest than ever in making these shows, making ICAST really kind of the central locus for new products in the sport fishing industry, and for bringing the industry together as, really a kind of nationwide and international endeavor.
Right. And part of this is, obviously it's all sport fishing. So fly fishing is a chunk, and we kind of joke about it, sometimes because fly is quite a bit smaller than conventional, right? You talked about 50 million people. Do you have any idea, out of those 50 million, is it kind of, like 1 million of those people are fly anglers, or what would be the rough estimate on that, or people that attend your show?
I'm not too sure about the overall numbers about fly anglers vis-a-vis conventional anglers, but I will say that the fly presence at ICAST is growing. Last year marked the first year that we've had kind of a dedicated floor space for fly companies. And we saw, a lot of interest and a lot of different companies, kind of coming to have a, that dedicated presence on the show floor there. We had, as we've had for a long time with the conventional side, demonstration ponds where, you can see different, rods and tackle in action. we did that with the fly casting pond last year. And we're seeking to continue to grow that segment of the show floor, that section of the show itself, including through new product showcase categories to really, demonstrate all the innovations going on in fly fishing, the best products that companies across the industry are rolling out, and to continue to ensure that fly fishing is represented at ICAST. It's something that we got a lot of great feedback on, a lot of excitement for, and we're looking to build on 2023's success here in July with more of a fly presence and continuing to build on that as well.
Gotcha. And if there's brands listening now, if they wanted to get involved, what is the best way to get more information on ICAST?
Absolutely. Go to icastfishing.org. That's your kind of one-stop shop for everything, show details, what exhibitors look like, what the new product showcase looks like. So ICAST, ICAST fishing.org is really the best resource for everything on ICAST.
Perfect. Okay, great. We got that. We'll add a link to the show notes to that. And then again, for people that are more listening now who aren't in the industry, can they benefit from ICAST? Or obviously they benefit from ASA, but is that something that's kind of separate? Or I guess new products showcase is interesting. Can they see any of this maybe from past years, or what would be your answer there?
Yeah, you can go look up the new product showcase winners from the last year, see some of those best in show, as well as different best of category winners coming from 2023. Mm-hmm. And of course, a lot of what goes on at ICAST, from the media kind of coverage of that to the demonstration of new products, is something that just folks might find extremely interesting. And we encourage people to look into ICAST as well. Of course, it's kind of the place to be if you are in the industry, and whether you're a manufacturer, dealer, distributor, of course, this is where a lot of that business gets done. A lot of those conversations are held, and it's really kind of the single great opportunity to convene the entirety of the sport fishing industry in a different year. And whether your kind of product lines and your background is more in bass fishing, whether you're offshore, if your company, if your tackle shop caters more to folks fishing saltwater flats, you can find those segments and more at ICAST. And it's really just kind of tremendous to see the hundreds of different exhibitors that gather every year, representing what is really a geographically diverse industry, and all the potential and innovation that's going on.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, and I see a video here, ICAST New Product Showcase from last year. We'll put a link in the show notes to that so we can take a look on YouTube. And then we're hoping to cover more of it as well this year. So I think there might be a chance that I might talk with somebody else that's more kind of leading on the ICAST chunk, so we can kind of dig more into what's coming this year to give a little sneak peek. So I'm excited about that as well. But yeah, it is a diverse. I mean, just in fly fishing, right? I mean, you think of all the topics we cover, whether it's tarpon to like sailfish. I mean, fly fishing, we talk about that too, how it's become almost any species in the world now. Somebody's out there trying to catch it on a fly, right? But you guys must have some species that are things you hear more about. What are I think saltwater is a good chunk for you guys, but what are you thinking about? Do you have a species or a certain species that, through ICAST or you yourself, you kind of focus on a little more?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And I'd say, personally, in trying to, become a better trout angler, a better fly fisherman, I'm definitely trying to get more and more involved with trout fishing as well. And of course, there are so many kind of policy tie-ins that I work through on a daily basis, whether that is kind of trying to leverage ASA as an industry voice to highlight the need for water quality, for habitat restoration, and for increased fish passage, which has been really kind of an area where we've seen a lot of breakthroughs here in the last few years. There's a lot of promise going forward to restore fish passage, both for anadromous fish in the Northwest and the Northeast, but throughout the country as well. It's an exciting opportunity where I get to see the changes and the policies that we're advocating for, both on the state and national level, impact the fisheries that we get to enjoy here out in the in the East Coast. But, of course, that's to say that, while I represent ASA's government affairs on the inland side, we've got representatives based out in Washington State, down in Florida, in North Carolina, that respectively cover the Pacific, Gulf and South Atlantic, and North Atlantic fisheries as well. So ASA is really that nationwide presence where we're seeking to cover the sport fishing industry in its entirety, fly and conventional, and
yeah, makes sense. And I think it's cool that you're on the government affairs side, kind of that inland fisheries side, because obviously that is a big chunk of still trout fishing, especially with fly, is a big chunk of the population. Even though everybody is we talk about all these other species, right? The carp and all the warm water species that people are excited about, but trout still moves the needle, I think, on fly, especially in the industry, rods, reels, new people getting into it. And so you're right in there. So you mentioned maybe what are a few things, if you had to say the three biggest topics or issues you're working on? Maybe you mentioned a few of them. I'm guessing fish passage. How are you trying to move the needle with the stuff you're doing right now?
Yeah. And I mean, maybe the three kind of biggest issues as they pertain to maybe nationwide interests, or maybe more for kind of an audience so that might be more interested in fly fishing and maybe thinking more of that inland fishery stuff that would be it could be fly or conventional, but what are the things that you think are the big things that are moving the needle on at least what you're working on? I start off by saying that kind of one of our big focuses over the last several years has been kind of taking a more holistic and kind of preventative look at aquatic invasive species. We've seen the spread of aquatic invasive species, whether you're talking about invasive carp, the zebra mussels, say the European green crab, or different fish, and different aquatic invasives, throughout the country.
Yeah.
And it's been something to see where there has been a lot of bipartisan support in providing funding to address these issues, to, control the spread and affect the management of species like invasive carp. But the fishing and boating industry, came together several years ago and launched a Blue Ribbon Commission, seeking to kind of take that recreational perspective and ask, how can we, as a community, as a federal and state government, come together and, seek to affect the better prevention of aquatic invasive species before they're established. AIS, aquatic invasive species, is really one of those essential ounce of prevention, pound of cure issues. And where we can look to improve coordination, better target federal funding, and seek to better leverage recreational communities that are on the front lines of these issues. AIS has been, kind of a major focus for us. So coming out of that Blue Ribbon Commission, we're seeking to advance those priorities here on Capitol Hill. It's something we've been, discussing a lot with different stakeholders in the space, but one of our major priorities on the freshwater and inland side. To look at a couple other issues that we've been working on, we have seen kind of, this was an issue that kind of grew initially out of the hunting community that we tend to work with here in DC on sportsmen's and resource issues, many of them. But there was legislation that was passed into law last Congress called the MAPLand Act. And what the MAPLand Act was really a kind of common sense bundle of provisions that directed federal agencies to both coordinate, standardize, and digitize maps that they hold within the agencies. So if you're, imagining, and to kind of turn this to the aquatic side, if you're imagining all the different land owning and water managing federal agencies, everything from out west, you're looking at reclamation, you're looking at the Army Corps of Engineers or the Fish and Wildlife Service. If you take it to the marine space, of course, NOAA is managing the ENCs that saltwater anglers use.
Yeah.
But all these mapping platforms are done in slightly different ways, and you can look at specific agencies where some of this mapping information is very outdated. So one of the things we're seeking to advance in this Congress is the MapWaters Act, which would bring together the interior agencies, the Fish and Wildlife Service, Forest Service, Bureau of Reclamation, Bureau of Land Management, as well as the Army Corps of Engineers and NOAA, to similarly direct them to digitize and standardize that mapping information, as well as better, including recreational information. So the location of boat ramps, launches, as well as different, say, spatial restrictions. If there are anchoring restrictions, speed restrictions, different fishery restrictions, if you're only allowed to fish with a circle hook in this geographically defined space, we want to make sure that that information is easy for folks to access. And we think that this is something that will continue to support marine electronics and the navigation tools and apps that anglers are using to get around. So that's one thing that we're excited about. We've had a good reception, and those bills have been introduced in both the House and Senate. We're actively working on those on a day-to-day basis to see that we can improve that as well.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a huge. I think of I just go back to the Onyx of the world, or the trout routes, right? There's some companies doing some cool stuff in mapping, but this is more on the government side to get everybody on the same page. So there would be one opportunity that I guess that would trickle down into all these apps, right? So Onyx or whoever else, private mapping could utilize these tools. Is that kind of how that would look in the long term?
Absolutely. Yeah. And, you mentioned Onyx and trout routes. Those were two of the many different folks across the navigation electronics and navigation app space that we consulted in trying to develop this legislation. So they've been tremendously helpful and supportive, as have many other companies throughout the space. Gotcha.
Perfect. And then you mentioned the aquatic invasive species, which is a huge challenge. Obviously, you can go out to like the Colorado system and the quagga mussel, right? All those invasive species that are clogging and destroying things, but also even on different levels, right? We've heard about things in like the Yellowstone area where there's controversy around say the native fish of the Yellowstone cutthroat, where they're removing rainbows and other species, right? So I'm guessing you guys don't get involved too much in that. Is that something where you send funding out to the local level and you let them, the state or the local governments groups, take care of that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I think it certainly varies from issue to issue, but with regard to kind of that specific challenge, we have kind of long worked with state agencies to make sure that, they have the funding and support they need to affect science-based management. Yeah. And ultimately, we think that those decisions should go down to the state level, where, across the country, you can see the states have had a tremendous track record in managing recreational fisheries and managing native and wild populations as well. And we want to make sure that, those resources are there for state agencies as well. So there is also, legislation that, we're working on the federal level that would continue to support state level conservation and restoration efforts. While our industry, as I mentioned earlier, pays the excise tax that goes into the sport fish boating and restoration trust fund, a lot of that, that funding does, get doled out to the agencies that go and work and, combine those funding streams with licensed dollars to go and affect that management. So, making sure that this type of scientific wildlife and fisheries management has the support it needs is really where we kind of come down on these different issues.
Trout Routes is the most comprehensive mapping app for trout anglers. With over 50,000 trout streams, 350,000 access points, public land maps, and more, Trout Routes is the #1 resource for navigating, researching, and exploring trout streams, and it deserves a place in every angler's toolkit. I was in New York fishing recently. My first time in New York fishing, I had the Trout Routes app, and I was able to check out and access public access points through the maze of private property on the rivers we were fishing. And after I got into the stream and was fishing down through a run, I wasn't quite sure. I saw a house down below. I wasn't quite sure where the property lines ended, but given that I had Trout Routes, I was confident where I was fishing, and I was able to assure that I wasn't trespassing. You will be fully prepared with offline maps. You can get driving directions to points of interest, drop pins, add your notes in the app, all while keeping all of your data private to your account only. You can visit troutroutes.com right now to learn more and download the Trout Routes app for free in the App Store today. That's Trout Routes, TROUTROUTES. Start exploring today. This is great. No, I think this is a good overview, and this is kind of what I wanted to get. I think that it's really interesting because you guys there's so much going on in the background that I think people don't realize, right? I think you might see ICAST out there as this largest event, and maybe you don't hear as much about ASA, but behind the scenes, you guys are doing a lot. I mean, what is, and I'm sure there's lots of people in different positions, but looking at your position, maybe give us the daily, weekly, what does your job look like? Are you on the phone all day? Are you what does that look like? I guess today we're kind of midweek. Is every day different for you, or is it kind of similar?
Yeah, I'd say every day is different for me. Of course, I spend a lot of time here on Capitol Hill, meeting with legislative staff, making sure that our interests are first and foremost. I also spend a lot of time, talking to our members, talking about the trade and commerce issues that we see that are affecting their business, that are affecting their day-to-day. ASA is, again, seeking to, be a nationwide voice. We travel quite a bit. We're trying to get out to different regional, local kind of areas for both trade shows as well as different site visits, kind of seeking to, go talk to our members, find out what's going on out in the field, as well as, doing a lot of work, again, coming back to state agencies and to showcase their efforts, as well as that, enduring relationship through the excise taxes and through kind of the user pays public benefit system that we refer to as the American System of Conservation Funding. So on the day-to-day, things certainly do look different, but, it's a really exciting opportunity to talk about regional issues and nationwide issues, see those parallels, and to serve as, a connection between what the states are doing, between what the industry is doing, and the perspectives of folks that are out there fishing and, enjoying, their recreational opportunities in their backyard.
Right. That's it. And describe the excise taxes. How does that, maybe paint that picture? How does that work? Where is that funding coming from? Where is it going?
Yeah. So for decades, there has been, an excise tax levied on the sale of sport fishing rods, reels, tackles, and kind of affiliated equipment. That's a federally managed excise tax that goes as well as on marine fuel. And that is managed in Fish and Wildlife Service accounts that are then apportioned amongst the states contingent upon a formula that determines the different kind of license holders and sales and needs among different agencies, state agencies as well. So for decades, those grants have gone back out to states. They're an essential component of what many states, state fish and wildlife agencies do, which is entirely self-funded. Many state agencies do not rely on general fund tax dollars from the state, but rather, seek to continue their work through that combination of license sales and excise tax dollars. So it's another way that both the everyday angler, whether you're, buying your trout stamps, buying your license for the upcoming year, right. And as well as, the new fly reel you just purchased, which there is kind of a built-in excise tax on that reel. That combination goes back and funds the conservation that is keeping, fisheries healthy and is keeping access opportunities abundant. And, state agencies will use that funding for habitat restoration, for remediation of water quality, for building new access facilities, new launches, new docks, new piers. So there's really a symbiotic relationship that goes back decades where, the industry and the angler themselves, fund the restoration that keeps those opportunities abundant, that keeps people wanting to fish.
Yeah, that's awesome. And there is a history there. I'm not sure if you know that history, but I'm guessing it goes back a ways. Like that was a smart move somebody made right back in the day of all this money. Because there's, like you said, $150 billion or whatever that is. There's a lot of money. I guess that's all overall in the industry, but still just sales of rods and reels. That's pretty amazing. What is and I know you guys, is there a person, if we wanted to hear more of the history of some of the stuff we're talking about, the taxes and things like that, is there somebody in your org that is an expert on that, or do you know a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'd of course point you to Glenn Hughes, who, has seen a lot of this work develop over the last few decades. Glenn is the president of ASA.
Okay.
Many in the audience may know him.
Yeah.
He's kind of a great resource to talk to on all things excise taxes. And yeah, I mean, I think one last thing I'll just add on that is to put really a impression of kind of the scale of that contribution, again, through the excise taxes, license sales, through direct donations. Anglers in the industry contribute nearly $2 billion. I think it's 1.7 or 1.8 billion to habitat restoration and conservation annually. So this is a substantial impact that really goes back and, makes a difference across the country.
That's it. Yeah. $2 billion. It's interesting. It's hard to sometimes comprehend, right, exactly how much that is and all the work, but it's a lot. And just like you said, fish passage, right? That's so important. And I'm not sure out of the $2 billion how many fish passage projects you could complete, but I'm sure it's a lot. So that's really awesome. Okay, so I think we have a good high level. Anything else you would want to share on just, again, we're keeping it high level here, but, that you'd like people to know about ASA or ICAST before, we start to head out of here today?
Yeah, would just further suggest folks check out Keep America Fishing. It's a great way to get involved with our Action Center and with the kind of policy priorities that we're seeking to advance, as well as icastfishing.org for more information about the trade show coming up in July. Would love to see more folks get down there, and there are some really exciting developments going on with our fly section down there. Lots of exciting stuff coming to ASA.
Perfect. Yeah, and I see this. I'm on the website here on the Keep America, the ASA advocacy, and it's cool. Yeah, there's basically three things you can kind of click here: issues, take action, donate, and it's really straightforward. So you can find out what some of the current issues are. So this is a perfect little segue. So anybody, there's some vessel speed protection of the, traditional tackle support youth program. Right? I mean, there's a ton going on here. So this is a great resource. We'll link out to that, and good. So I think we will also follow up on ICAST because we didn't go deep into that. I would like to find out more about, what's coming this year. I think it is in, it's in Florida. Is it usually, it's been in Florida for many years, right?
Yeah, it's been in Orlando for several years now. And going forward, we're kind of eager to continue getting down to Florida. Of course, Florida is a huge fishing state.
Yeah.
So many of our members from both the freshwater and saltwater side are down there. It's a great place for us. But that's just to say that, whether you're out west in the Northeast or international, it's really well attended by folks from across the country and around the world.
Yeah, I think Florida is obviously it's a hot spot for, who doesn't want to go to Florida. The challenge is, I think July is a little bit hot, right? That's a time where you're probably going there just for the show. You're not going to be outside too much, taking the family out to Disney World or anything.
Right.
but that's all good. No, I think that, and I think one of the things about it is, and we've, the IFTD, right, I think used to be connected or used to be in ICAST, but now it's in Denver, I guess they mixed it around a little bit, but I think that the thoughts there were, it's more centrally located for people, again, to get out. I think Florida, you got to obviously fly to Florida. If you're on the West Coast, it's a little bit further trip, but do you guys find it's more of an East Coast, kind of centric folks that are there, or is it a good mix of pretty much everybody all around the country?
I'd say it's actually a really good mix, despite the geographic location. And, in years past, before I was at ASA, ICAST was held in different places, right?
Oh, it was
Chicago,
right.
I think Vegas once upon a time. But really, it's retained its ability to be truly representative of, companies and manufacturers from across the country. And yeah, maybe it's, not necessarily the, maybe you don't want to take the family to Disneyland in the heat of July, but that does not rule out the fishing opportunities that you can get into before and after the show. So there's always some added interest in getting down to Florida at that time of the year. And of course, there's just folks from across the country and around the world that are eager to get to Orlando.
Yeah.
So we don't find that it tends to skew fishing or Florida focused or East Coast focused necessarily.
Okay. Yeah. So good. So, and I think we're going to wrap up here pretty quickly. And I was just looking down again through the list of everything you guys have going in. It's a huge list. Pretty much everything we talked about is linked. There's links to this, including the salmon, There's Pacific Northwest salmon. You've got the striped bass. You've got everything going down the Florida Everglades. So a lot of these, we've talked to a lot of the local groups on some of these issues. So I think that's the best place for people to just follow up further. We mentioned the ASA fishing, and you said and just search for the current issues, Keep America Fishing. So we're going to do a quick little random segment to get out of here. This won't take too long. This is our fun fact segment. You've given us a bunch of facts and fun facts today, but maybe think of one more we could leave people with as we go out of here. But talk about a little bit about, what would be, again, words of advice to somebody who's just listening now and they feel like you talk about climate change, you talk about overwhelm, right? All this stuff. What can we do? What is your word of advice to that person that feels like, man, are my tax dollars going? You always hear that, like, where are my tax dollars going? I think you've painted the picture today, but what would be your last words of advice on all that?
Yeah, just in terms of, what's kind of coming down the road, and maybe an optimistic take.
Exactly. How would you keep people optimistic to realize, hey, even though you see these declines in Chinook numbers and steelhead and you see these things going on in the Florida Everglades, and brook trout, we've heard people say, hey, brook trout are going away, man. Climate change is here. The water's warmer.
Yeah.
So how do you guys stay positive in all this? Or what would be your advice to the people listening?
Yeah. And, there are really these myriad issues across the country. And like you mentioned, drought, warming waters, challenges to habitat. A lot of this stuff is, just continuously an issue for us, our industry, our community. But maybe, some cases for optimism is that, we're seeing, particularly, again, in the Northwest, Northeast, but also throughout the country, really transformative investments in fish passage that are restoring habitats in a way that we haven't seen in decades. So funding through the bipartisan infrastructure law, which was passed several years ago, has really kind of galvanized different agencies working with the states, working with tribes to look at replacing culverts, small dams, weirs, and really just kind of taking these impoundments and restoring and opening up stream miles to anadromous fish and to even just non-migratory fish.
Right.
Just this is continuing to serve the fisheries across the country, and of course anglers, whether you're more on the fly or the conventional side, you're going to see these changes coming in the next several years and over the next decade. So there is there are reasons to be optimistic, and certainly some interesting things going on here at the federal level that are making impacts around the country.
I agree. Yeah, I think that part of that is the warming of the temperatures. I think that's why the fish passage is so important, because there are going to be areas there are areas where fish can't get to some of these cold water kind of areas, right? And so by providing fish passage, that you're opening up a lot of habitat that historically or hasn't been there for probably maybe 50 years or more. And so it makes sense.
No, it's really important for temperatures, for even water quantity, as well as, of course, reconnecting that habitat and, ensuring particularly anadromous fish are able to, reach spawning grounds and, continue.
Good. All right. So we got two more quick ones out of here. And the one is on your, back to your fly fishing, right? So if you go back to your beginner fly fisher self, what would be your advice to that person now, knowing what you know? What would you tell that, you when you first got started to help you maybe have a better time at fly fishing?
Oh, yeah. I think I would recommend to myself to really just, take it upon myself to really look at the myriad opportunities in my backyard. And again, kind of going back to what we were talking about with the MapWaters Act, with the kind of just the wealth of different navigation tools, there are really just so many opportunities for you to learn more about your area, different opportunities, areas to fish as well. And again, through mapping apps, through technology, we're seeing increases and really advancements in access that are opening up people's eyes to the opportunities in their backyard. So as I'm kind of getting more and more into fishing the trout streams of Maryland and West Virginia, and hopefully I want to get up into Virginia and do a little bit more fishing out there later this spring. But Yeah, there's just so many opportunities. And of course, on the navigation side, the industry is continuing to innovate and make advancements. And that's just continuing to connect people more with the outdoors.
Perfect. And the last one here, this is our music or podcast question. Are you more of if you're on a road trip, are you more listening to music or podcasts when you're hitting that next fishing destination?
Ooh, that's a good question. It all depends on the day, but I'd say I lean more music.
Music, good.
I lean more music, helps me kind of get into the mood, get a vibe.
That's right. What's a rough? Do you have a genre, group, song, anything you could leave us with here? We could throw into the show notes, like typically what you'd listen to.
Yeah, I like a little bit of everything, but thinking about hitting the road always makes me want to listen to some Bruce Springsteen.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, say Darkness on the Edge of Town is one of my favorite albums. Specifically from that album, I think The Promised Land will always be one of my favorite songs. So
perfect.
In terms of thinking about open road music, that's what gets me going, gets me fired up.
Love it. That's perfect. That will be going in the show notes. So we'll have The Promised Land. We'll get some Bruce in there. That's perfect. And then do you have what would be a podcast? What's the type of podcast, or do you have one you're loving these days?
Man, there's a lot of different podcasts to choose from out there. I really do like the Sportsman's Voice, which the Congressional Sportsman's Foundation puts together. ASA, we've put together our own government affairs podcast as well.
Oh, right. So you got a podcast. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. And we also, would love to point you to, a number of different podcasts. Of course, the We Fish ASA podcast, it's a great opportunity as well.
Nice.
And always some good content on there. We'd be happy to pass all that along. So you can show that in the show notes as well.
For sure. Yeah, we'll do that. And that's what I love about the podcasting space. I mean, I'm an expert in kind of the podcasting, but there's so many podcasts out there that still, I haven't listened to, people don't know about, and which is amazing because it is relatively young when you compare it to other parts of the online world, right? Podcasting is still kind of in its infancy. So it's awesome.
Yeah, there's so much great content out there, and it's always good stuff.
Good. All right, Connor. Well, I think we'll leave it there today, and we'll send everybody out to asafishing.org if they have questions. And just want to thank you for coming on today and sharing all this, kind of all the advice and wisdom and getting the intake on what you guys have going in the background, because really it sounds like you guys are really moving the needle for a lot of groups all around the country. And appreciate the good work you're doing, and look forward to keeping in touch with you.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Dave. It's great to talk to you today.
Holy moly. There it is. I hope you have some focus now on what you can do to have impact in your local area. If you can, take one action today, and that could be checking in with your local representative or local group, find out what's going on, and definitely we've got a lot of links in the show notes to take this conversation further. You can check in with any of our fly fishing schools. We got new events going. We got new giveaways going on, wetflyswing.com/giveaway. The next one is going to be launching on Monday. Coming up here, we got Muskie Week coming up. This is Muskie Week. We're going to be giving away a trip up to Wisconsin to fish for one of the greatest sport fishing predators that's out there on a fly. This is going to be a big week, a big event that's coming up this year. So if you get a chance, check in there. And if you want to get a trip, if you want to get on this trip, we're already selling spots for this. Send me an email, dave@wetflyswing.com, and I'll let you know what we have available. And like I said, the next episode next week on Monday is Dan from the Muskie Fool. He's going to be breaking it all down today so you know what to expect and how to get some good tips on getting your first muskie on the fly. Okay, I'm going to leave it there for today. As always, I hope you have a great morning, great afternoon, or great evening wherever in the world you are, and I appreciate you for stopping in and checking out the show today. Looking forward to catching you on that next episode.